Hello, and welcome to the video for Playing with Stuff. Playing with the Nvidia SolRemix characters, the character setup. We have our project, we have our scene ready to go, but now we want our characters to do something. When we hit play, well, our character just stands here and does nothing. They have no animations, and when we make them move later, it's going to look kind of weird. So we might want to fix that, and that's what we're going to look at right now. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to choose the male or female for my project, and then I'm going to duplicate over some of the basics eventually. So in this case, if we look through our existing project, we have our third-person character blueprint. I'm actually going to switch this back to our default mesh so we don't get these confused. And then inside of there, we also have our Mannequin Animations. So this is our animation blueprint that controls how our character moves when they move around the scene. If we open that up, you can see they're standing here. Or, for example, if we increase the speed, they'll slowly start walking and running. And they also show them jumping. It's all controlled by your animation blueprint. And that's all controlled by these different animations that we have set up here. You can take these models. So, for example, let's take this female model. We could right-click on our model. And we could asset actions. And we could export it out to an FBX file. We could open this up in something like Max, Maya, Moto, Blender. We could then add our own animations, create our own animations, and bring them back into the engine. Or we can do what's known as retargeting and retarget existing animations, so the walk and the run that we saw earlier, to these skeletons. That's what we're actually going to do. So let's get started on that. Now we're going to fail a couple times on this, so that way we can see all the issues we run into when you're trying to match two different skeletons together. If we open up our soul female, this is the one I'm going to work with, and we find her skeleton. This is her skeleton. This is her layout of her skeleton, going from her root, pelvis, different spines, necks. We have some accessories here, like some jetpack holders, lots of finger joints. If we go to character, bones, all, you can see this is what her skeleton looks like, and it's pretty detailed. If we go to our existing character, so this is our mannequin that we're going to pull the animations off of, and go to skeleton, you'll notice it's not quite as in-depth, and our skeleton itself is not as detailed. But that's fine. As long as the basic structure works, we can retarget. Now, the first thing with retargeting is we need to set up the retargeting to the base skeleton. So let's go to our mannequin, and this is one of the important things. You need a retarget. So if we go to our skeleton, so this is our existing skeleton. We'll go to the Retarget Manager. This is where we set it up. And you have a rig. Both items, the target and the source, need a rig in order to retarget. So that is important to note. So we go to Select Rig, Humanoid Rig. You'll have a humanoid rig here. It'll tell you it needs to be saved. So this retargeting setup can be saved. And it's going to fill out some settings. Since this is the built-in skeleton, everything's going to match perfectly. So that's a good thing. So we'll go and hit save. And now we have a retarget rig on our base character. If we were to go to, for example, our animations now, and we're going to want our idle. Right-click on our idle, retarget, duplicate animation and retarget. We're not going to see our retarget here. We could allow it to convert to a non-compatible skeleton, but that's not going to show up here in the target, and it's not going to work because we don't have our compatible rig on our second skeleton. So let's go to our second skeleton here, our female, Retarget Manager, and we'll do the same thing, humanoid rig. We'll save this. Now if we went ahead and tried to retarget, you'll notice that she shows up as a compatible skeleton. Now she still doesn't show up here, and if we were to retarget, well, things might not look as well as we would want them to work. And you'll notice nothing happens on our animation because none of our bones are actually set to match. So let's go ahead and close that. We'll delete that one since we're not going to use it anymore. And we'll look at the actual Retarget Manager itself. Once it finishes, there we go. And it closed everything. That was lovely. So let's look at our actual Retarget Manager itself again. So here we go. And skeleton, Retarget Manager. And you notice all these are set to none. We have both a basic setup here for our basic bones, and then a show advanced, which shows all the individual ones, like maybe individual finger bones and things like that. Since they're all set to target none, well, none of the bones are going to be remapped. So we need to fix this. The easiest way to do that is to hit auto map. It's going to do its best to walk down the skeleton and find the appropriate matching bones. You'll notice it worked for our basic and our advanced. Okay, that's cool. It's a good start. Let's go ahead and save that again. Saving here is not what we want. This is something we're going to work on shortly. You want to save the actual skeleton itself so this remapping works. Go back into here, find our animations. Here is our idle. Let's go ahead and retarget the idle again. You'll notice she shows up now because we have matching bones at least. We'll retarget, and then we'll look at her. And you'll notice, well, it's not working like we'd expected. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Well, actually, there's one primary reason for that. The skeletons don't match up. There are different bones, different names, and different setups in each skeleton. So, for example, while our original skeleton, right here, our mannequin inside of Unreal Engine, if we look at the skeleton setup and we look at our arms, so this is a good one. So let's target our stupid arm. I hate target. There we go. We have our lower arm R, which is from our shoulder to our elbow. Then below that we have the lower arm twist 1, which is halfway down the lower arm. And then if we go to our skeleton and we go to lower arm twist 2, I hate finding these stupid things. Here's a hint. In the top left, you can sort and you can filter. So if we look for our second one, you'll notice there's no lower arm twist 2. If we look in here, you'll notice this is actually called hand, which is annoying to find. Let's close this out and find it again here. There we go. It's called hand R. So the second part here is called hand R. If we go into our female skeleton and we look at how things are set up, you'll notice things like this. Spine 1, spine 2, spine 2, spine 1, spine 3, spine 3. You notice things are not matched up very well. And it's easy enough to go through, and this is where a difficult part's going to come in if you need to remap. But the nice thing is you only really need to do this once. Looking at our original skeleton, we want to start matching pieces to pieces. So if we look at our Retarget Manager, root is root, pelvis is pelvis, spine is spine, 2 and 3. Spine 1, 2, and 3, spine 1, 2, and 3. Look at our skeleton, find spine 1, 2, and 3. You'll notice we have our pelvis in the middle. Then it goes up to spine 1, spine 2, and then spine 3, which is right here below the neckline. We go to our female. Let's see if we can check the same thing out. Go to our skeleton. We'll go to our pelvis. Okay, our pelvis is in the good spot. We go to spine 1, we go to spine 2, and we go to spine 3. And you'll notice that looks roughly the same. Our neck is way, way lower, which is kind of annoying, but it's the same basic thing. And if we go to our actual neck joint, it's up here, neck 1, neck 2, and head. We look at this other skeleton. We need to find those parts right here. You'll notice there's only a neck 1 and a head. So these are immediately going to cause us issues. And if we go back to our skeleton, retarget, you'll notice it messed these up. So we just change them. Spine 1 to spine 1, spine 2 to spine 2, spine 3 to spine 3. And then you would go through and you would do the same thing for every single one of these. And as you start getting things better and connected better, it's going to start importing more accurately. So we just changed our spine there. We'll hit save. We'll go back in. We don't need this one. You see how this one's all messed up? We'll go ahead and close that. Go back to our animations. We'll try again. And we'll duplicate it back out with our changes. We'll look at our second example. And it's looking a little better. Our spine's a little better, but we still have things like, this is our clavicle joint, which seems like it's way over here instead of where it's supposed to be. So this one is our right clavicle joint. That one probably shouldn't be off to the left of our character. When we look at our skeletal mannequin, I'm guessing it's going to be one of our shoulders up here. If we can click on it, like our upper arm. Look at our retargeting. Do we have a clavicle? We do. We have a left clavicle joint to our left clavicle, left shoulder joint to our upper arm. Let's find those items. So here we go. Left clavicle joint is actually right here. It's this connector bone. And then we go to the shoulder joint. And then we go to the elbow joint. So our clavicle joint is this joint connected to here. If we look on this character, this is our clavicle joint right here, which is actually called upper arm on this character. So upper arm goes from the middle part to our shoulder. On here, that's not. Our left clavicle joint is actually this part. So that's supposed to be mapped to this bone right here, which is our shoulder joint. We go back into our Retarget Manager, and we look. Clavicle joint. No, clavicle should actually probably be the shoulder joint. And then our upper arm is probably going to be something different. So we look on here. This is probably our upper arm. This is our lower arm. Here's our upper arm. Nope. So we have our upper arm, which is this point here. You have your clavicle there. So the upper arm. And you'll eventually go through and you'll eventually start mapping the right things together. Now, to speed this up, because I've already spent like 5 minutes talking over and over about stupid stuff, I'm going to show you the result. Here's the end result of our character. We go into our character animations, and we can pull up, for example, our idle, which is not right, and I'll show you why. So we actually want to do... where's the... something like this. You'll notice it's correct. I've gone ahead and I've already done all the skeleton retargeting to the correct things. Once you've got it reset, once you've got it mapped properly, you can actually save it. So you can save these bones out to a mapped bone mapping. So you'll see I have a bone mapping already set up. If we go into our project, we'll go into here. We have a bone mapping. The nice thing about this is we have two different characters, but their structures are the same. So we can actually use the same bone mapping between the two characters, which I'll show you shortly. But we can also take, and I'm going to migrate this one out to our other project. So we're going to take this bone mapping, and we're going to find our project. So it should be this one right here that we're working in. And we're going to migrate it out. It's going to ask us to override our existing ones. Again, you don't have these issues. I just care about migrating out my bone mapping. We'll go to our new project. This is the project we were working on. We'll close these out. And here's our character. Here's our bone mapping. Here's our female. And you'll notice now when I go in here, oops, let's close that out. We go into here. There we go. We have these still messed up because they're the wrong bone mapping. Inside of our female, right here, skeleton, Retarget Manager, we can load our bone mapping. It's going to remap them here. You'll notice in here we have like our clavicle, left clavicle, upper arm, shoulder, elbow. Our advanced, we have all of these things set up properly now. If anyone wants to know exactly how those are supposed to be done, I'm going to show you now. So you can zoom through here. These are the settings for that part. These are the mappings for this part. These are the mappings for the next part. We'll go to advanced. You can see all of these are set up. One of the biggest ones here is our indexes for our fingers are actually mapped to 2, 3, 4. So that'll cause our hands to have an issue. So you can see they're all set up. Our arm twists. Our indexes again for our fingers are set to 2, 3, 4. Except for our thumb, of course, because it decides to be weird and it doesn't have 4 joints. It's only got 1, 2, and 3. There's our arm twists and our legs. Rest of our knee joints. Now, all of these things from here on down, these are all IKs. These are for inverse kinematics on the original model. You don't actually need these set up because they're not used for targeting. So we can set those to none, for example. And we'll save it out. Now our skeleton has a valid retarget map. We can then go back to our animations, grab our idle, retarget, duplicate. We're going to select it. We're going to go to retarget it. And then if we look in here, we're going to end up with this. Now, the majority of this is good. You'll notice that we have our arms in the correct spots, but there's a couple issues. We have this weird guy that won't stop moving. Let me stop the animation. Upper arm twist is really weird way down there. And then you'll notice our feet are weird as well. Now, there's 2 ways of fixing this. I'm going to show you one way, and then I'm going to show you the other. The first way is just manually moving stuff. For whatever reason, our upper arm twist is just simply offset incorrectly. If we type in twist, and we look at our upper arm twist, you'll notice these are our values on our first frame. If we look at our right upper arm twist, which is correct, you notice these are our values. For whatever reason, they're not correct. Now, one way to fix this is to copy the location for the right arm, go to the left arm, and paste the location. You'll notice it's not correct, so paste it a couple more times. And you notice it's slowly getting back to correct. And then since this is on the opposite side, we'll change it to a positive instead of a negative. You'll now notice our right upper arm, you stupid upper arm, here we go, is in this position, and our left upper arm's in this. It looks better. If we play back our animation, you'll notice things seem like they're correct. Our legs are still messed up, and technically, let me go ahead and undo that move because I want to show you why in a second. So this twist is back to where it's supposed to be. Our legs could be done the same way. So for example, we can target our little bones down here, move them up, move them, zoom in, make our foot look better. But that's not going to be the proper fix for this. So let me show you the hidden option because it's hidden and annoying to find. If we go to options in our skeleton tree, there's a retargeting options checkbox, which is disabled by default. And you notice the retargeting translation is set to animation by default. Now our animation, for whatever reason, just simply doesn't want to work correctly on the skeleton. But the skeletons are correct. So if we right click on our root joint, recursively set translation retargeting to skeleton instead of animation, you'll notice she kind of snaps into place. We change this back to animation. You'll notice it's out. We change this to skeleton. You notice it's back. She's a little more stiffer, unfortunately. But all of her bones, her feet, her arms, all of the animation is properly mapping to the skeleton now for the translation retarget. So let's go ahead and save this. Again, this is on her skeleton itself. And we will go back into here. We're going to delete all of those because we don't need them anymore. We are going to go into our animations now. Now that we have a working animation and we have a working skeleton for retargeting, we can select all of our third-party animation blueprints. So our animations, our idle run, and our blueprint itself. And we're going to, select them all. There we go. And we're going to retarget them all. So if we just retarget the animation blueprint itself and duplicate it, select our female, and retarget, it's going to put all of them from the animation blueprint and the blend space and our animations in here. We'll make a new folder called anims, and we will grab our animations, which are again in our root folder, and we'll move them into here. And we now have animations set up for our character that work. If we look at them, actually we can just show you. So we hit play. Here's our default character. Whee! We don't like him anymore. We want to use this one right here. Go into our character blueprint itself. So here's our character blueprint. We're going to copy him out of here and put him into our female. We're going to rename this to our soul character blueprint. We'll edit our soul character blueprint. We're going to change it over to our soul character mesh, soul female. We're going to use animation blueprint. We want the, well, let's rename that. Make it easier. So here's our third person anim blueprint, soul anim BP. So now we have a soul anim BP. Go back to our character. Find our soul anim BP. There we go. Hit compile and save. Our viewport should show her idling again. Okay, looks good. We hit play. Well, we still have our character. Not a problem. Everything's controlled in our maps and modes. That's how we made it work in the first place. Maps and modes. Third person game mode. Advanced options. We want our default pawn to now be our soul character pawn. Right here, our soul character blueprint. Close that out. Close that out. Hit play. And here's our character. She can now run. She can idle. She can jump. All of our animations are mapped properly. The floor is not proper, which we can change here shortly. That's just because this is a different height character. But we have now taken our existing character, our soul characters from Nvidia, and we have mapped existing animations to a completely different character and skeleton. Let's fix that last thing here. We have our blueprint. We'll go to our viewport. We're going to look at this from like the left side. And you'll notice we have our little mesh here. We have our character not quite where we want to be. So let's move her down a little bit. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. I think it's because we need to move her up. No, that looks better. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but that looks like she's on the ground from here, right? Yeah. So there we go. So that was taking an Nvidia character that didn't have any animations, bringing it into the project, taking an existing set of animations, so our third-person character animations, retargeting them, going through, fixing all the individual bones. Yes, I did short circuit through that, but it would have been about half an hour worth of manually mapping the bones together, which unfortunately is work, but it's something I've already done. So that's why I just quickly shortcutted and showed you how to use the bone mapping. I also showed you which bones were mapped. But once you got them mapped, then your animations were able to successfully work properly.